Well, I'm here with three amazing men, which is lovely for me. David Schmidt, who is the founder of LifeWave and a good friend of mine, and Dr. Dean Clark and Dr. Steve Haltiwanger. You all are so progressive in your thinking. I just have to start with patches. How did you come up with the idea for patches?
Interesting story. I was developing products for the United States Navy at the time through government contractors. I was working on emergency systems, things to keep people alive longer, oxygen supplies, power generation systems. And I got invited to this project, and the idea was we wanted to improve the stamina and the survivability of personnel on a mini-sub. And I thought, you know, they're using caffeine and stimulants, amphetamines, to give people energy, and I'm really opposed to this philosophically. You know, we've got wireless communication today, satellites, cell phones. Is there any way that we could wirelessly communicate with the body to improve energy? And so I began to research along this line, and eventually I found a way to elevate energy production in the body without drugs or chemicals, and that's what we call LifeWave patches.
It's a concept that's hard to grasp.
There's several different things that are going on at the same time. The patch looks like a Band-Aid, but it doesn't breathe like a Band-Aid does, and it's not putting any type of chemicals into the body. So one of the things that happens because of the design of the patch is that it will trap our body heat, and you get a mild heating effect underneath the patch. In Chinese medicine, this would be known as moxibustion. But it simply means that when we have a temperature differential, and now we're talking about a principle in physics and thermodynamics, where we have a difference in temperature, energy will flow from the high temperature to the low temperature. So what this simply means is that we can have a very simple device that will stimulate points on the skin and get energy moving. And that's really critical because when we're in pain, when we have inflammation, or as we age, energy doesn't flow as easily. So if we can get energy moving, we can experience a reduction in pain and an improvement in our health.
Because life is a flow, right? Everything in our body has to keep moving. So from my perspective, it unclogs blockages. That's what it says to me.
It's a good way to think about it. You know, it's one of the things that happens as we age is you see the cells begin to shrink from dehydration. Now, it's really obvious if you look at the quality of the skin of an infant to the quality of the skin of someone, let's say, that's 80 or more, the typical 80-year-old that is. We see massive dehydration, difference in levels of water in the tissue. And we don't normally think about it this way, but there are changes, detrimental changes that occur within each of the cells. They begin to shrink. And when the cells shrink, the electrical properties of the cells begin to change. And so if we can reverse this process by improving energy and improving the way energy flows, we can improve health and experience dramatic anti-aging.
Well, I have to say, I mean, I know how old you are. You have very, very young skin. Is that because of the glutathione patch that you wear on a regular basis? Is it the amount of water that you drink, the combination of both, the food that you eat?
I'm delighted to say I turned 47 this year, and when I went for my yearly exam to test my blood, my urine, all my physical markers, I went for bioelectrical testing. All those markers indicated that I was someone in my 30s. And I love that because it means that the philosophy that I have and the approaches that I'm using are working. With regards to the patches, I use the energy patches daily, and I move them around to different points each day, which is really critical in working with this flow of energy in our system. And then I use a complement of antioxidants regarding the patches, of course, glutathione and carnosine, and soon to be a new patch that we're releasing next year. But the free radical model of aging, which has been around for decades, clearly tells us that we have to protect our bodies from free radicals, chemicals that attack us, and antioxidants are certainly one of the ways to do that.
So I'll play devil's advocate. because I'm sure that this comes up a lot. Is there any scientific proof of your patches that they work?
There's quite a bit of scientific proof, and as a matter of fact, seated to my left is our Director of Health and Science, who
that would
coordinates
be Dr. Steve. You throw the tough ones over to Dr. Steve. Where's your scientific proof, Doctor?
Well, we've done numerous studies. We've already had a number of them published. For energy enhancer, for example, we put people on bicycles or an exercise bike, and we had them exercise without patches. We had them exercise with patches. We had exercise with placebos. And while they were doing this, we were using pulmonary gas measurement technology where they wear a breathing mask, and we were able to measure their oxygen utilization, carbon dioxide. And what we discovered is that when people put the patches on, they would burn more fat, which increases their energy production significantly, because every time you burn fat, you get twice as much energy than if you burn sugar. And we found about a 22% increase in fat burning when people were wearing the patches. And this translates into athletic performance and just more sense of well-being and less fatigue at the end of the day. When you get that afternoon dip, you have less of that. So that's one example. We've done numerous studies with our pain technology where we're having people wearing patches with the placebos and wearing our rail patches. And what happens is we're able to determine that they consistently reduce pain in a variety of conditions. And so that's been a number of studies been finished on that. We've done a number of electrical studies where we actually measure electrical properties of the tissues in response to the patches. We're looking at how they change acupuncture points. And what we've determined, some of these have been published already. We just had one on carnosine published, one on glutathione published. We've had others published on energy patches. And what we find is that the patches will change and balance the electrical properties of the body. And this is very exciting. So we've had heart rate variability studies. We've got a brainwave study coming out that's going to be published soon. We've got studies that have been done on electromyography. So we've got 30 studies completed, and we've got another 30 on the drawing board right now.
And what's exciting is because all of us are so concerned with the toxic burden that we're all carrying around, the environmental assault. For each one of those, every time you don't take an over-the-counter medication and use a pain patch, that's one less chemical that you're taking in. I'm sure, Dr. Clark, and you are, in fact, you are the chief athletic doctor for the 2010 Olympics.
Not the chief, but I'm on the medical staff. That is correct.
Chief to me.
Okay. Thank you very much.
If it were up to me, you'd be the chief.
Thank you so much.
How are you utilizing the patches with athletes?
Well, of course, when you're looking at athletic performance at that level, the world stage, certainly the greatest need for the perfect health, the patches have proven to be, for me, the best tool to get that last bit of performance level to the health of the athlete. There's multiple issues and, well, shall we say, illegal things that have been used over the years. But I'm proud to use a product that not only increases performance, but is past all the regulatory needs and issues, and we have the very safest product to use. And so with confidence, you can put an athlete on the line with our products and know that they will not only pass all the tests, but they have the ability to have their highest performance level.
With Olympic athletes, we had something extraordinary happen in 2004. We had a United States Olympic athlete win a medal in gymnastics. She was in a tremendous amount of pain from a hip fracture, and we're able to use our product to relieve the pain and produce an Olympic medal. And you can imagine when someone has trained 4 years, 8 years, 10 years to get all the way to the Olympics and be suffering in pain and maybe not be able to compete. This is one of the ways that our product made a dramatic difference in this young woman's life, and she was able to finish with a silver medal. And athletes are using it because they get results.
How important is belief in believing that these work?
I have patched 4,000 people, and I've had people that are absolutely, oh, this is a complete waste of time. Patch them. oh my God, what did you do to me? So, I would have to say belief's important, but our patches are so effective, especially the pain patches, for example, in that you can see an immediate effect. And it has to do with, the way you apply the patches and putting them in the proper location. But we find that if you follow the directions in the brochures, about 90% of people are going to have some degree of response.
I'd also have to say that to me, it's the fact that we can demonstrate the product and it works. People might deny the results because they don't believe it will work, but the results are there nonetheless.
How did you get involved with LifeWave, Dr. Steve?
One of the early investors contacted me and said, I want you to look at these patch idea and tell me what you think. And I said, my first impression is, this guy's really just taking advantage of you and it's a scam. And that was my first impression before I listened to what he had to say. And he said, well, these patches work on this non-transdermal effect, and I want you to check it out and prove they don't work. So I spent several weeks researching, all the writings that David had on the web. I spent 6 or 8 hours interviewing him 2 different times. I mean, we got these long 3-hour conversations, and I had a list of one of those yellow notepads full of questions, and I'd cross them out, and he answered every question that I had clearly. I mean, so obviously I knew this guy understands what I'm talking about because I'm asking these very detailed questions about how the body works or electrophysiology, and he's answering them. And then I went back after that, did some more homework, had another list of questions. And so after that, then I tried the patches out myself, and I said, well, these things work. And I told the investor, he invested, and they started the company. It was about a year later that they called me up and said, we want you to come in and join us. But that was after they'd already started.
This was in 2004?
Yes.
I firmly believe we're in an era where things that were not possible even 10 years ago are possible today. And when we look at the mechanisms of why we age, we understand that antioxidants are important, so we need to keep them elevated, and the patches just happen to be the most efficient way that we know of to do that. Exercise, eating properly, hormone therapy, all of these things are important, but stimulating the body's energy flow produces certain effects that we don't get with other methods. Myself and Dr. Clark and Dr. Haltiwanger, we follow the work of other scientists, and one in particular that I'm very excited about is this whole area of research in telomeres. And we know that telomeres are linked to the aging process. They're these little rods that are attached to chromosomes on our
tail?
On our DNA, something like that. They're little rods. And as our cells divide, the telomeres begin to shrink. Well, there are biophysicists that have done work to show that when you stimulate the acupuncture points called stomach 36, which are just below the knees, that by stimulating these...
With the energy patches?
With the energy patches. When you stimulate these acupuncture points, the telomeres will lengthen. And what that means is that the number of times that the cells divide will increase. So this potentially means that we could take the lifespan up from a maximum of 120 to double that.
So that's true anti-aging.
That's true anti-aging. And if we combine this with bioidentical hormone therapy, with antioxidants, with eating properly, with exercise, with proper hydration, if we combine all these things, we get a very powerful synergistic effect.
I think the 2 things that all adults are concerned with now is how do I age well and how do I not get sick? How do I age well? You just answered with that is the formula. Bioidentical hormones, nutrition, sleep, detoxify. Cancer is going to be the biggest killer in the world in 2010. Where do patches fit in relative to having a positive impact on maybe lessening that horrible statistic? I'll go to you first.
Well, from the point of view of how the patches work, particularly the glutathione and carnosine, you're reducing the toxic load on the body. The President's Commission on, there was a presidential commission that just got released talking about how toxins and chemicals in the environment are causing cancer. And I can say that our patches clearly are reducing that potential. So that's how I would address it.
If a person were to wear the glutathione every day, which detoxifies, and wears a carnosine, the second part of every day, which repairs cells, would that be an incredible protection against cancer?
It would be protective of cells. I don't want to go to the extent that said it's going to protect against cancer because we haven't done studies on that. But I could tell you very clearly that it's going to reduce the chemical burden on your body, which is beneficial.
Right.
You know, there's two other ways to think about this, and I'd like Dr. Clark to address one of the studies that he did with our patches and how they reduce the inflammatory response of the body, which is a contributing factor in the initial stages and ongoing stages of cancer. But another way to look at this is back in the 1960s, the Food and Drug Administration in the United States came out and was directly showing the link through their research of chemicals like DDT that cause a phenomenon known as chemical carcinogenesis, meaning these chemicals attack cells and they cause cancer. And what's fascinating about this is that when we understand the mechanism, we realize this is an electron transfer process, meaning that these chemicals are interfering with the way electrons move in the cells. And we should be concerned with this because it's the antioxidants that protect us from these cancer-causing chemicals. So the FDA found out in the 1960s that it was in fact glutathione that was able to protect cells from chemical carcinogenesis, meaning if your glutathione levels were elevated, you wouldn't get cancer from these chemicals. So there is a direct link, in fact, between glutathione levels and your susceptibility to getting cancer.
Except that from age 40 on, our body's ability to produce glutathione diminishes. So it seems to me that we're living longer, that these patches have come in the nick of time.
Yeah, you know, it's absolutely true. As we age, hormone levels are decreasing, energy production levels are decreasing, the communication system in the body is starting to fail, the antioxidant system is becoming depleted, and, you know, it doesn't take a genius to figure out, well, what happens when we balance hormone levels? What happens when we elevate our energy levels to youthful states? What happens when we get our antioxidant levels back to normal? We're going to be in a healthy, youthful state, and that's what it's all about.
What happens when we get our hormones balanced?
There you
It's just wonderful living with women who are balanced hormonally.
I'll have to let you know when I get there. So.
And you will. Tell me about your study, Dr. Clark.
I use technology that's called infrared imaging, and we're able to measure thermal differences of the skin temperature down to 1/100th of a degree. With that, in a practical way, we're able to see the abnormalities that other technologies just simply don't see. X-ray, CAT, PET, so on. So with this, we're able to see the abnormalities of inflammatory processes already in the body, whether it be pain, organ-referred pain, other abnormalities that, again, are just not seen by the common technologies. We're then able to patch the appropriate areas and measure the body's response. And in a practical way, if the immune system is improved, everything that we've just discussed, all the science of the anti-aging and so forth, if you have a strong immune system, you have now protection against all the major diseases that generally take our lives.
The more you understand anti-aging, glutathione, the nanotechnology patches, eating correctly, sleeping 8 hours, the more you realize that good health is so attainable. It takes a little work. It's easier to sit and, you know, not take care of yourself. But I think what you're doing is so hopeful. It makes me, sometimes when I interview doctors, I hear the doom and gloom, and then I get with people like the three of you, and it feels that you got an answer. And I'm glad you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.